Hello, everyone. I am sure that you have been reading, watching, and seeing all this stuff going on about Meghan and Harry. And I wanted to talk to you about it because for those of us who have had abuse and been treated with neglect, emotional abuse, toxicity, we know what this is like. For those of us who've gone no contact, we get it. We get what she's saying. We get what she's going through. And I shouldn't be surprised, but reading on some of the comments and stuff in the, like NBC, CNN, Guardian, Telegraph, I've read the comments in all of them, and I'm struck by the racism and toxicity that's still going on around Meghan. The people haven't watched what she's saying, but they're saying she's attention grabbing. How many times have those of you who have had neglect, emotional abuse, narcissistic parents, physical abuse, sexual abuse, that when you cry about it, when you share how you are about it, you're called a drama queen, a crybaby, you're insulted. This is exactly what's going on with Meghan. And I can imagine that for those of you who have had any level of toxicity in your past or in your current relationships, you get what Meghan is going through right now. And I can imagine that it's triggering for you. So I want to validate your experience because I didn't do much sleeping last night, and I keep looking at the stuff now. And when I'm doing that, I know because it reaches a part of me that has been so invalidated that it's like reading in my face as she speaks the aspects of toxicity and the impact of toxicity, like she was saying, of depression, suicide. Those things are just the result of emotional abuse. So let's have a look at the mirrors between Meghan's situation of what she's going through and for many of you what you will have gone through in emotional abuse. I'm going to be releasing next or tomorrow night my Overcome Emotional Abuse program, and you can sign up for the waitlist because I'm going to be teaching things you can go and sign up for the waitlist there. But I think it's really, really essential that we overcome this. So it's restoring.love/program. But let's go through what Meghan has gone through. All right. Firstly, one of the things about this that pisses me off is the racism. It has not been subtle. It has been deliberate, focused, calling Archie a monkey, comparing Kate, like the flowers of Kate's dress versus the flowers of Meghan, where Meghan it's told she's going to kill people, where Kate is like, oh, this is in honor of Diana. Just constant vilification of who she is. That is deliberate scapegoating. But in this case, it's scapegoating because of race. And if you watch my scapegoating videos, you would see that it can be because people are neurodiverse, they are taking more responsibility, they're a truth speaker, or it's just because of racism, which is horrendous and wrong. But that's Meghan's situation where we see this constant racism. The next is the patriarchy. Andrew was hanging around with pedophiles, and people have come forward saying they were 14 when he kissed them. Nothing happened. The Queen, the whole royal family didn't investigate that at all. They just went hush hush, brought him home. He's still making money off the Queen. The whole of the UK contribute to his livelihood. No investigation at all. How many of us have gone through sexual abuse from a brother, from an uncle, from a father, and when we speak about it, it's silent. We are silenced, and they are just given free rein to live their life like nothing has happened. And that's exactly what's going on here. This patriarchy, I remember when my brother smacked my head against the wall and my mother was like, oh, he must have had a bad day. I'm like, now I'm having a bad day. Do I not matter? But and I always used to say to my mom, why do the boys in our, we had 2 boys, 2 girls growing up. Why do the boys matter, but we don't? Is it just because we don't have a penis? So if I strapped on a penis, would I then be equal to them? Or is it just that they have a real one? What would it take for me to matter? And that is just annoying. I just realized I'm going to do a comedy show on that because I think that could be quite fun. All right. So the next thing is the silencing of her. So when she became a princess or whatever it is, duchess, her passport was taken off her. Phones were taken off. She could only have a phone call if other people were there to monitor what she was saying. How horrendous is that? And I remember similar things of when I was sharing anything of the abuse that I went through. Like I remember my one aunt saying to me, I'm going to tell you what I saw on the condition you never tell anybody. So she had seen the abuse I'd gone through, but she would only tell me on the condition I would never tell anybody. I said yes, but I did tell people because afterwards she described how she saw my mother abusing me, but she didn't want to upset my mother. And this silencing of this, I see so many times people writing in my free group, Home for Restoring Love, or my workshop group, Tame the Triggers, or in my program, Restore or Overcome Emotional Abuse program, people sharing that to the outside world they had to be smiley and nice and loving, but behind closed doors there was pain and suffering, and that lack of transparency completely does your head in, because when you're in public you feel like a fraud and an imposter, and when you're in private you feel utterly alone and in despair. And this is horrendous because it, like what's happened to Meghan now, is the suicide and depression. And what often happens in families like this, I'm just checking that all my notes, what happens in families like this, where there's emotional abuse, is the mental illness is delegitimized and not dealt with because they are blaming the person, the scapegoat, for the issue, going, well, they obviously have mental health issues, and if it's not recognized, we can blame all the issues on them. If she's going through suicide and depression, there are times that she will be hurt and upset. I know for myself, having PTSD from childhood abuse, there are times that I've been angry and upset. There's times that I have been, looked crazy to the outside world because I was suffering. And what I needed was empathy and compassion and not judgment from anyone. And that's what Meghan has needed and not received it from this institution, or as she calls it, the firm. And she does make it clear that it's not the Queen, it's the people running the institution of the royal family. That just have no empathy and said because she's not a paid member or a paid employee, she doesn't get human resources and it wouldn't look good. So we're just going to ignore it. This looking good is such a common thing in where there's abuse, especially in religious families. Growing up as like a good, sweet Christian or an ideal Muslim, that everybody has to see you as a great community leader or a happy, smiling, loving, religious family. But behind scenes, there's huge abuse and people don't realize it. And it just makes it, what happens then is that when you describe any of the abuse, which has happened to me, the number of times that I describe abuse and people go, I had no idea. Because it was all hidden. If somebody arrived at the door after my brothers had hurt me, we would just have to smile, because if we didn't, my brother would hit me again. And if I remember once mentioning, do you know what happens at home? And my brother warned me and he said, if you don't shut up, you're going to get it. And I said, he bullies me at home until I cry. And he looked at me and said, I warned you. And then when we got home, he beat me up. And my mother said, well, he did warn you that would happen. Not like, this is unacceptable. You can't treat people like that. It's my fault that I mentioned it. And that's exactly what's going to happen with Meghan, is that, and has happened, that because she started sharing what the reality of her experience, now they're bringing out bullying claims against her. to delegitimize what she's saying, to make her look crazy, or she deserved it because of this situation. And when I went through it, oh, my son's calling to tell me to come and fetch him from school. I'm just going to quickly finish speaking to you, and then I'll answer him. Or let me just tell him, sweetie, I'll come and get you now, okay? Go to the hotel. Go to the hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, love you, bye. So that was the same thing that happened to me when I started sharing about the abuse that I had gone through. I got a letter, anonymous letter in the post saying, your mother's told us that the psychologist told her that you've got borderline personality disorder. And I was like, what? Which psychologist was this? And they described it was a South African psychologist. So I contacted the only psychologist that that we saw as a family, and I recorded it. That's why I can never get a different phone, because it's all on iPhone. It's the first voicemail that I have. I called him on Skype and I recorded it, and I said, hi, Clive. There's a rumor that you've told my family that I had borderline personality disorder. Is that true? And he said, well, number one, if you did, I wouldn't tell them because that would be unethical. And number two, I wouldn't tell them that because I don't think you do have it. I think that you grew up in an abusive family, and I've always worried about how it impacted you because you were the scapegoat of the family. So, they made up this big story to delegitimize the truth of what I was sharing. And this often happens to people who are in a toxic emotional situation, and then they speak the truth. And then what happens in this is a lack of responsiveness to deal with the issues, because if they do, they have to face themselves and they have to face their own behavior. So instead, they gaslight the person who is being scapegoated. They make it sound like it's all their fault, that they deserved it. And there's a lot of shaming, isolating, and silencing. And I am so grateful that Harry has stood up and he has said, I'm not having this. And I'm not going to tolerate it, and I'm taking my family away. And what I wish for all of you is that you have a loving witness who says what you went through was valid, it is wrong, it wasn't okay, and you deserve love. Because when we have that, then we know who we are. When we are told, this is what you deserve, you are wrong, then we feel awful about ourselves and feel like we don't deserve to live. And that's where we become suicidal. And I have been there. And I created this program to be able to look at all the ways that I've healed, to create a loving witness for you, so that when you're experiencing anything, you can be that loving witness for yourself and say, I didn't deserve this. This was utterly wrong. And I deserve to be loved. And then the ways to be able to process it. Tomorrow night, after the celebration of Tame the Triggers, I'm going to be sharing about the Overcome Emotional Abuse program. It's an 8-week program that starts next Monday. So you just have a few days to be able to sign up. And to see the difference that it makes in people's lives is just incredible. This week, people have been sharing with me. I don't know why suddenly in the last week, they've just been like an outpouring of how the program has changed their life, going from self-harm, feeling awful, to trusting and loving and growing in goodness and care and love for themselves and believing in themselves like they never have before. And it's just been utterly incredible. So I'll be sharing about that this week for those of you who want to join us in overcoming emotional abuse. I don't want anybody getting to the place that Meghan has, where she was suicidal and so depressed that she couldn't cope. I've been there, and it was isolating and horrendous, and I don't want that for anybody else. So that, if you go to that link, restoring.love/program, that's the wait list. And if you sign up there, then I'll send you an email as soon as the program goes live tomorrow night. So I'm really, really looking forward to being able to take a new bunch of people through this program, to celebrate you, to give you the skills to process, because I don't want anybody feeling alone like this, like I did as a kid, where I vowed to myself that I was going to ensure that people like me didn't feel so alone. So I'm sending you love. Come and sign up there so that you can hear about the program tomorrow, and come and join us for the next 8 weeks in gaining the skills so that you can be the loving witness that you've always needed in overcoming emotional abuse, so that you can feel calm, loved, and really thrive and believe in yourself. All right, I'm sending you love.